first time here? Yeah, welcome. All right. I'm glad Sandra brought you out. That's great. That's beautiful. Y'all are excited. I like that. All right, y'all. So if you have not purchased, really quick, if you have not purchased for pickup, you can only purchase at register, okay? Writing and other art medium classes at LA County juvenile halls, camps, and reentry centers. Our most recent accomplishment has been establishing the deli with support from community chef Wendy, aka Guayaba Kitchen, who has been diligently teaching youth. Yes, we love Guayaba. Who has been diligently teaching youth culinary and entrepreneurial skills. What brings all of us together here at the Achuchas is our collective belief that everyone is an artist and giving the space to explore and nourish their creative skills. Thank you again for being here and for showing up to support our efforts. Now I would like to introduce our host, Nely Galán. Nely Galán is a media executive and entrepreneur, Emmy Award-winning producer, founder of the Adelante movement, and author of the New York Times best-selling book. Give it up. Okay, the best-selling book, Self-Made. After becoming self-made on her own terms, Galán took a mid-career sabbatical, completing a master's and doctorate in clinical psychology, which focused on the psychology of money and multicultural communities. Her next book, to be published in 2023, Don't Buy Shoes, Buy Buildings, will inform those who clearly work for others how to invest. Give it up for Nely Galán. And now the reason we are all here, Sandra Cisneros. Sandra Cisneros is a poet, short story writer, novelist, essayist, performer, and artist. Her numerous awards include NEA fellowships in both poetry and fiction, a MacArthur Fellowship, National and International Book Awards, including the PEN America Literary Award and the National Medal of Arts. More recently, she received the Ford Foundation's Art of Change Fellowship, was recognized with the Fuller Award for Lifetime Literature, and won the PEN Nabokov Award for International Literature. In addition to her writing, Cisneros has fostered, apologies for the technical difficulties, Cisneros has fostered the careers of many aspiring and emerging writers through her two nonprofits she founded, the Macondo Foundation and the Alfredo Cisneros Foundation. As a single woman, she made the choice to have books instead of children. A citizen of both the United States and Mexico, Cisneros currently lives in San Miguel de Allende and makes her living by her pen. It is my honor to introduce Sandra Cisneros.
If you will wear your mask, I'll be able to take mine off. And it's for your own safety because I've been in contact with a lot of people, including someone who was with someone who just tested positive. So for your own safety, if you keep your distance and wear your mask, please. I have 2 more months of book touring, so I hope I make it to all. And this is week 2. Bed 8 in a 10-bed trip. So, I want to thank first the Achuchas and Trinini and Luis for having me. I haven't been here in a long time. I've never been to the new store. And it's so beautiful to see you because I just got my COVID test today. And I have to thank, where's Mickey? Mickey is the best author escort. And she's been bragging to like the workers who did my COVID test. And she went to Los Hermanos and they were like, yeah, whatever. They couldn't care less. It was very humbling and a wake-up call to the hierarchy of fame. Writers are the protozoa on one end, and on the other end are the women with big butts. So keep that in mind. All right, so it's really great to see an audience like this, and I'm enlightened. And if someone's taking a picture of this crowd, send it to my Instagram so that we may post it so that people can see Latinos buy books. If you want to make a difference and things get published, support writers. And I like what Nely says, take a chance on the younger writers. Sometimes, I remember my first book sold for $1. And now that same book, it was a 500 copy run thanks to Gary Soto and Lorna de Cervantes. If you find a copy of that, it's over $1,500 now. So support the younger writers, support independent presses, support independent bookstores. And like Nely always says, we have dollar power as Latinos, and that's important to remember. No? Thank you. How many Macondistas are here tonight? Raise your hand. Tony, ¿quién más? Seba, Dennis is here somewhere, I know. I can't see with that light glaring on me, but there's been a Macondo presence, the writers who are part of the workshop that I founded many years ago, many decades, 95. And every city I go to, I see the Macondistas, and you guys give me so much animo, so I thank you for that. And you were there last night too, so that's hardcore fan. Thank you so much. I also want to thank Nely, Macondista, too, to be here on the stage with me. Yesterday was supposed to be Shuri Morata. She was ill, so I read by myself, and it's always fun to have someone who pronounces the Spanish beautifully to read alongside me. She will be reading the Spanish, a couple of the poems, and then we will have an interview and Q&A. Hay alguien quizás que no habla inglés, que necesita escuchar más del español, necesito saber ahora. Si me pueden decir a usted y quién más. ¿Alguien más? Bueno, pero alguien más acá. Ok, entonces vamos a leer 3 poemas en español y mi colega Nely lo va a leer. Y para los demás que no hablan español, ni modo. Those who are bilingual, you could follow along. Nely's going to give us the page numbers in the Spanish edition and the English, and you can jump back and forth if you like, okay? All right, and I have to say, Nely picked these out today, and the last poem has some adult subject matter, so at the end I will warn you if you want to take your children outside or do what my mother would do, like, close our eyes and cover our ears, but there's no palabrotas, and so it's up to you. But the last poem, I will warn you, yes. My mother used to give us 2 quarters and go out to the movie lobby and get some ice cream. Okay. But, with a cover like this, you know this is not a children's book. Okay. The first one you wanted was this one. Oh, okay. You wanted me to read on page 96?
You want me to tell you which one?
Yeah, I see it. I just have a hard time holding the mic. And aquí está.
You want me to hold the mic for you?
No, I got it. Yeah, ya lo encontré. All right, there's a lot of songs in this book. There's a whole section called Cantos y Llantos where the songs are included. And some of the poems are written in Spanish. Algunos de los poemas los escribí en español, así que es un placer poder estrenarlos para ustedes que hablan español. Pero esta lo voy a leer en inglés y luego seguimos con la programa en español. This is called Exploding Cigar of Love, and it's to the tune of El Hokey Pokey. So you can help me a little bit when you can read the song, and that's what it's all about. That's the chorus. You can sing that with me, and that's what it's all about. Clap, clap. Okay? When you get to that, I'll point to you. Okay. Exploding Cigar of Love. You toss your corazon in, I toss my corazon in. We toss our corazones together and we shake them all about. We light the love cigar and we get a little high, and that's what it's all about. I write a poem for you, you write a love poem for me. We send 103 emails and we shake them all about. We light the love cigar and we get a little high, and that's what it's all about. You advance un paso, I retreat para atrás. I back guachito toward you and you take a two-step back. The more I pull, the more you tug, the more you push, the more I scram. What are we? Pepe, Le Pew, and the cat. You toss in self-esteem, I toss in emotional hemophilia. Insecurities, addictions, and we mix them all about. We light the love cigar and we get a little high, and that's what it's all about. You text, "You're too much for me, baby." I text, "Well, maybe you're not enough." You text, "I need to be free," and I'm shaking all about. We've been tripping on the love cigar, now sobriety sets in, bang! And that's what it's all about. Thank you.
I'm going to come in with the Spanish.
Ándale.
Si no, yo creo que me vas a tener que prestar el tuyo.
Okay.
Your mic. Okay, so this is a little just behind the scenes. Lo voy a decir en inglés y después en español. Sandra has a way of sending her friends poems when we're going through things. So this poem, for those of you that have the book, on the English side, it is on page 12, and it's called Remedy for Social Overexposure. So when I was on my book tour and I was really stressed out, you don't know how difficult it is for Sandra to go on a book tour, and it's energetically very draining and you can't take it anymore. And I would tell her, "I don't know what I'm doing." And she sent me this poem. So I love it. Lo voy a decir en español. Sandra le manda sus poemas a los amigos cuando están pasando por cosas y estamos estresados y tristes de lo que sea, y ella nos manda como regalito el poema antes de que salga en el libro. So, hoy les voy a leer un poema que es uno de mis favoritos porque ella me lo mandó a mí cuando yo estaba muy estresada y triste, y se llama Remedio para cuando uno se engenta. Ok. ¿Qué es lo que uno hace? Buscar un pirul y sentarse debajo de inmediato. Sacar de oídos y lengua las palabras. Ayunar de estas. Remojarse en una tina de aislamiento. Enjuagarse la cara con el viento. En casos extremos, mojarse a uno mismo con el cielo. Entonces secarse delicadamente con las nubes. Ponerse pijamas limpias, bien planchadas, de preferencia blancas. Arrimar cerca del corazón perritos chihuahueños. Besar y dejarse besar por estos. Consumir un vaso frío de noche. Leer poesía que inspira poesía. Escribir hasta que el mal genio regrese a la calma. Poner luz de luna en un cuenco. Dormir al lado y soñar con flores blancas. It's beautiful. Gracias.
Este poema me inspiró una poema muy linda escrito por el poeta chapaneco Jaime Sabinas, que escribió una poema en un poemario que encontré en Oaxaca cuando fui joven. Se llamaba el libro Poemas Sueltos, porque quién sabe si existe, pero la poema que me inspiró fue La Luna, So if you can find Jaime Sabinas' poems and find La Luna, it inspired that poem. I have to give credit to one of my favorite Mexican poets from Chiapas. I have to make a little commercial because, you know, sometimes I read books that I blurb, and I'm so emocionada that I send a fan mail to a writer I've never met. And I sent a fan mail to this writer, and he didn't write back. I thought, oh, I remember when a famous writer wrote to me and offended me because he thought he was Mr. Big Stuff. And I thought maybe I offended him because I was giving him some advice. Maybe I said something wrong. How come he didn't write me back? A year passed, never heard from him. And guess what? I ran into him the day before yesterday in Santa Cruz. And he said he wrote to me, but I never got that mail. So his name is Jaime Cortez, and he wrote this beautiful collection. He's from California, and it's called Gordo. And it's one of the most beautiful story collections I've read. It makes you laugh, and then you realize, oh, that's sad after you've laughed. So it's really amazing. So please, put this on your must-read list, Gordo by Jaime Cortez. He's very nice and muy simpático, and he was not offended. It's just that the mail didn't come through. The other writer that I was supposed to be with this week is a young writer that I knew when she was chiquita. I knew her when she was a reina chiquita. Now she's a reina grande. She really was a little writer when I met her. She was really escuincla, and I met her, and I read this book, and I said, wow, you know, this is the book I've been waiting for, because everybody wanted me to write the immigrant experience. I can't write something I haven't lived. And then she wrote it, and I said, no me digas, this is heavy duty. But this is the 10-year anniversary edition. I'm holding the advanced copy. It comes out in November, so invite her to come here. She will come, because she's from LA, LA's own Reina Grande. And I wrote the introduction, and that is a very good introduction, if I do say so. I have to say, good one. If you want to know the secret to success, it's in my essay in here, so get it, okay? I don't have time to read it, but there it is. Okay, now I'm supposed to read.
One there, you have it right here.
Yeah, I got it right there. Yeah, I got to take off these glasses to read this little print. You know, the older I get, the more I like to document myself in poetry naked. This is me, this is a nude, and it's called At 50, I am startled to find I am in my splendor. Yes. These days, I admit I am wide as a thule tree. My underwear protest. And yet, I like myself best without clothes when I can admire myself as God made me, still divine as a maha, wide as a fertility goddess, though infertile. I am, as they say, in decline. Teeth worn down, eyes burning yellow, a belly bountiful and flesh beneficent I am. I am silvering in crags of crotch and brow, amusing. I am a spectator at my own sport. I am Venetian, decaying splendidly, am magnificent beyond measure, Lady Pompadour roses exploding before death. Not old, correction, aged. Passé, I am a vintage. I am a woman of a delightful season, planted firmly and without a doubt, filled to the brim I am. I said the brim.
The next poem is another poem that Sandra sent me. You know, Sandra writes a lot about the things that happen to all of us. And for Latinos, how important are our parents to us? And Sandra's mom had passed away, and she wrote this poem, and my mom this year, she's still alive, but she's had a lot of near-death experiences, and I was in a very sad place, and she sent me this beautiful poem. So for those of you that want to follow, the English version of the poem is called The Year of My Near Death. Y ahora lo voy a leer en español.
¿Qué página?
Perdón, está en la página 103.
En inglés.
En inglés. En español, la voy a leer ahora y está en la página 119. 118, perdón. So, estábamos hablando de que Sandra escribe muchas veces de cosas que son importantes para todos nosotros, y nuestros padres son súper importantes, y la familia para todos nosotros. Sandra escribió esto después que su mamá murió. Yo tuve un año muy feo con mi mamá, casi muriéndose 3 veces, y me vida para estar cerca de ella. Yo estaba súper triste y ella me mandó este poema, eso para mí es muy especial. Año de mi casi muerte. 6 meses después de que mi madre muriera, una cinta se desenrolló de mi útero, como un niño nacido muerto. A los 53, la matriz despertó, exhaló y habló por última vez. Por mi madre, por mí, yo quien no parió a nadie en vida, parí duelo. Esa fina línea roja en un mapa, guiando mi escape de sirviente a maestro, de hija a adulta, por siempre jamás. Mi cuerpo habló una vez, antes a los 33, año de mi casi muerte, año de mi cruz. Socorría la desesperanza con silencio, sueño. Medía mi valía según los demás. Una niña aún pidiendo prestado para pagar las cuentas. No servía para nada más que las palabras. ¿Y de qué servían las palabras cuando comenzaba el mes? 9 meses la matriz no respiró. 9 meses vacilé antes de la ruptura. Salvada por la providencia, ángeles o antepasados. Estigmas para probar que esta historia es cierta. 2 veces he muerto y 2 veces sobreviví. A los 33, el año de Cristo, y décadas gemelas después, cuando mi madre se transformó en luz. 2 veces morí, 2 veces desafié a la muerte, maravillada ante el poder del cuerpo, de hablar, sanar, resucitar, perdonar.
Disculpe, se nos olvidó decir el nombre de la traductora, la gran poeta Liliana Valenzuela, también macondista. Ella me ha traducido casi todos mis libros. Un esfuerzo muy difícil es traducir poesía, sobre todo, y es una maravilla escucharlo con tu perfecto español, perfecto. No, de veras, beautiful in Spanish. Quiero agradecerte, Nely, that you're here with me reading it in Spanish. That was Liliana Valenzuela, the poet, macondista, who did the hardest work is translating poetry. And it sounds like it was written, ¿verdad? Suena como si lo escribió en español. Eso es el arte. That's the chiste.
Traducir correctamente.
And make it lyrical. No? All right, now's your chance. If you have a child, you can leave the room. I won't be offended. Anyone under 18?
Trust me.
I'm not paying for your child's therapy. All right? Now you can go to children's room.
Yeah, there's
no bad words. But you want it to be I once read this in a women's conference, and the only two children were my nephews. They were like 15 and 16. They had to walk the hall of shame to get to the back and go out to that hall. They're so embarrassed. I don't think they ever want to come to their Diaz reading again. Okay, but I'm not going to pay for their therapy. Okay. All right, everybody's over 18 here? All right. I hardly ever get a chance to read this because children.
A little child in the back.
All right, it's all right. She could stay if the parent signs an agreement. All right. Okay. Very rarely. I read this the other night in Berkeley, and I think they will never invite me back. No, I can do it. Okay. Thank you, though. All right. All right. Ahora sí. I wasn't going to read this, but Nely told me I should.
Yes.
I write things as if what I have to say can't get published in my lifetime. And I feel that poetry is the one room in the house of the spirit that allows us to speak sin censura, because the biggest censor of all is ourself. Okay, so when I was very young and very inexperienced, a man, as he unzipped his jeans and took off his cowboy boots, said, "You better not put me in a poem." And I thought, what did he mean by that? And several decades later, when I was making the bed, I said, oh, I got it. You better not put me in a poem. One had a long curved scimitar like a Turkish moon. One had a fat tamale plug. One had a baby pacifier. One had a light bulb he was proud of. Gave me the creeps. I could never forget it. I could never pick it out in a police lineup. Not in a million years. Not even with an AK-47 to the side of my head. One liked to pull it out like a switchblade when least expected. At his mother's, standing in the bathroom, the door open. His ma in the kitchen, talking on the phone. Me on the couch, trying to read. He thought this was sexy. One liked to skim Playboy magazines when we were making love. I found this humiliating. One liked to put his hands on his hips like he was Mr. Big Stuff. This pissed me off. One liked to dip his fingers in his semen and lick them. He drove me wild. One slept in my bed but never touched me. This was my choice. One drew a spiral on the envelopes of all his letters. Translation, your back door is mine alone. One lived with a woman. One lived alone, but refused to let me see where he lived, like a serial killer with something to hide. One liked to whack me with his dong like a cop's baton. He had issues. One liked to dress me as a boy and take me from behind. He had issues. One was an alcoholic and would go on endless riffs. The war, the women who left, the wife he wouldn't. One night he called from a bar and left 17 messages on my machine. Did I mention he was an alcoholic? One never touched the stuff. It made him vomit. He was always home. One drove a nervous car with too many miles and not enough car insurance. But every weekend end, he drove 200 miles in frantic traffic to see me. One never came even when I offered to pay the airfare. One was married to somebody, a string of somebodies. We saw each other off and on, in between, during, above and below, over a quarter of a century. When he divorced the last time, I realized finally he was the Father Almighty's approval. I would never get his approval. I didn't need his approval anymore. I had made him up. When he came, he hiccuped like a dolphin, snorted like a horse, embarrassed me hollering like a girl, was strangely silent like a deer, panted like a little dog and planted a kiss on my butt. Each and every time, never. And afterwards he laughed a little, wheezed, hacked up a furry cough, sprinted off to the shower like I was the plague, lit up a smoke, never smoked, had a collapsed lung, had only one lung, and was a percussionist. After our goodbye, I sent him pawn shop bongo drums and marshmallows from Texas all the way to an address in Athens. A year later, the bongo drums and marshmallows came back unopened across how many oceans? A package stamped in Greek letters, address unknown. I read it as undress alone. I sent a $100 bouquet of parrot tulips to a restaurant where one worked as a bartender, even though he was terrible in bed, because I was grateful. I was needy. I was young. See above. I was, am, always will be a romantic, which is the same thing as saying, I fall in love all by myself. I sent one a poem. I never saw him again. I sent one a 27-page letter wrapped around a brick for dramatic effect. I sent one postcard from Trieste, Sarajevo, Sparta, Siena, Perpignan, describing my other lovers. All he did was laugh. One was a Tejano fitness freak from Austin. Tremendous. A lottery prize. I'm not kidding. Until he opened his mouth and spoke like a guitar, like a Texan, like a redneck Texan. Once when I was making licuados for breakfast, he said, "Great, I love smoothies." One knew what a woman wants above all else is words. To be told he loves her. To be told how he is going to love her as he is loving her. To be told there is no woman like her. I can't forget him. I don't remember his name. He is not my ex, nor my Y, nor even my Z. He is my eterno. One night on a bed of sand, under canopy of falling stars, one who wanted to make love to him made love to me. He to him, I to they. And afterwards I concluded, a ménage à trois is useless because I need love. A semblance of love at least. Eternity. And how can you ignite eternity if preoccupied with How do I look? One didn't care what he looked like, and this was precisely why. He was sexy. He was as impeccable and godly as GQ, but the more exquisite he grew, the more I turned into a rodent. He was my own height and weight. It was easy to flip him over in bed, and the fact that I could made me feel powerful, and I liked this power. One was big as a redwood, and when he lay on top of me, I felt like hollering, "Timber!" One was violet like the ink from a sea creature, beautiful but deadly. The skin beneath his clothes glowed from within like a lamp of alabaster. His thing was a blue baby born without air. His thing was pink like an angry child holding his breath. I don't remember his thing. I don't remember anything. One confessed after making love to me, he was still in love with a ballerina who had moved away to Kansas. Then he bought me pancakes. One confessed he was still in love with an actress he dumped when she was an unknown, but was now celebrated in Cannes and Paris, and this was killing him. One bought me a 5-pound typewriter, a white Izod polo shirt I never wore because it was too Dallas, a bag of pan dulce, and put me to bed as if I was his only child. But I was in love with a sex puto who made love like a water hose drowning a riot. One took pictures of me nude when I was too shy to be nude. I took pictures of me nude when I was too old to be nude. It was obvious one had an Oedipal complex. I was 40, he was 21. I lost interest in one because I thought he looked like an old man. He was 40, I was 28. Pee on me, one demanded, and I knew I had to get out of there. I came to bed wearing nothing but a belt of bells like a flock of sheep. I came to bed wearing nothing but a mink coat. I came to bed wearing a granny gown and long underwear. I came to bed the moment one called because he had to get up early and go to work. And if I didn't, he said I wasn't going to get any. And his love is the sweetest memory. We made love on a train in Genoa in a restroom that smelled of pee. I hated, adored, was terrified of him because I was poor, and worse, ashamed of being poor. I knew he would eventually just leave me. I wanted him to destroy me. I thought pain was necessary. I wanted to be him, all of the above. One was a pre-med student, and after making love would ask me to cough, tap on my back, thump me like a drum, read my body as if I was a well-tuned machine. I had a crush on one until he appeared at my door one night with a mustache exactly like my brother's. I met one in Benihapa when he rose from the Mayan jungle like a plumed serpent. I met one across a boardroom table where he licked my nipples with his eyes. I met one at a bar where a gay friend and I both wanted him, but I was the only one brave enough to ask, are you gay or are you straight? Silence. Why? Because I don't have a lot of time. One shook like a little tree when I left him. There were no tears for me. I shook like a little tree when one left me. There were no tears from him. Subsequently, I learned this emotional equation. The first one to cry robs the other of the need to. One was a sham shaman, and when we first made love, he smudged me with copal and let me place my tongue on his scars. One became famous, and they make movies about his books. One is a loser. He teaches at a university where they don't care. He's a hustler. One got married to Hello Kitty, though I suspect he's in the closet. One was Opus Dei. He dumped me for a Catholic he knocked up. One wanted to knock me up just so he could say he knocked me up. One was an anarchist, and I can't forget the sex. I don't remember the sex. I remember him, and that was sexy enough. One was bi, and now he's gay. One was straight, and now he's celibate. One had teeth like a rat, and now he can afford to have them fixed. One was in love with a man, and when they kissed each other once in front of me, slowly, deliberately, a cigarette burning flesh, I was neither jealous nor sad, but fascinated, like a fleck of glitter somersaulting in a globe of snow. I was Cinderella, searching for the perfect fit, and when I tried his on for size, I knew. It was the opposite of childbirth. One was born in my life when he slid in with a grunt, and it was then I knew. One was soft as a custard cone. I always felt it was my fault. Once I dreamt I was carrying his penis through an airport. When, without warning, it sputtered a geyser of shit. I rushed it to the ladies, hesitated, decided the men's room, then paused. I wasn't sure where to go, but one thing I knew. Over and over I said to the aghast bystanders, but it's not mine, it's not mine. You better not, he said, kicking off cowboy boots, unzipping his tight jeans, put me in a poem. And the arrogance at first, when I had no such intent. Well, I just knew that would be the first, if not the last, thing I would do.
Does this one work? Can you hear me? You can hear this one? Okay, now you can hear this one.
Does this one work?
Yeah, that one works.
okay.
That one works.
Those lights are, you know, the poems, I always carry a handkerchief when I'm performing because the poems take me to a real emotional place. But some of the emotion was that light. If you saw me like crying, it was like, because my eyes are very sensitive. So just so you know.
So that poem is a perfect transition into, let's get down and talk, Sandra. First of all, start thinking of your question, because we're soon going to have a Q&A. But let's go back to the name of this book, Woman Without Shame. And, you know, Sandra, it's very important for you to share because I think so many Latinas, I see so many beautiful women in the audience, we grow up being told, no hables de esto, no hables de lo otro. You know, everything is malo. Our parents don't understand us. How did you get to this place in life where, you talk a lot about it, about you are an open book and you're not afraid to say things that are unspeakable almost to others. And you always say to me, if you don't write it down, it doesn't exist, and that you want to almost write your story. You don't want someone else, after you die, to be telling all these stories about you.
Yeah, it's especially important that you document your life story or document those you love, because it never happened if you don't write about it. You're not history, you don't count unless it's documented in some way. And I feel that intensity of writing about my family, people I love, and especially about my own life, because I know that my life is under scrutiny and someone's going to write about it. So if I don't get my version down, the biographers or the graduate students are going to make up their own, so I better hurry up and write all the things. There are many things that have happened to me that I haven't documented, and they're not even in this book yet, so I hope there's another book of poetry coming up after this one. I still have vergüenza about things that I want to say, but it's not about sex. I have vergüenza saying I love you, because we didn't grow up saying I love you. You know, that's like a thing we didn't grow up with in my house. So I'm learning to not be ashamed, and I have to do it in increments, because it's hard. It doesn't come naturally to me.
But you and I talk a lot about aging and the issues, especially Latinas have, that we all feel like we're always too old for everything, which I don't know where we get that. And this idea of aging and time and feeling young, and that people see us as the kind of not sexy beings anymore, or like we're viejas when we're still so vibrant. And I see so many women in the audience, and I want you to talk about it because you really are very inspirational about that. You don't really mind if people ask you your age.
I'm very proud of my age. I celebrate my birthday every year with exuberance.
Yes, you
I
do.
love my birthday, and I feel like now that I'm 60 and on, I'm 67 now, I have a good time. Every birthday, no one enjoys their birthday as much as I do.
She has the best birthday party.
I do. You know, that's one of the things I wanted and I desired was to pop out of a cake. So I made a cake skirt for my 60th birthday, and I just ran around with a big cake. It was fun. And so I think, you know, if you know what you want in your life, you have to make it happen. You want something, you make it happen. You make your own party. You'd like a piece of jewelry to celebrate a big achievement, buy for yourself. You know, because only you know, and you deserve it. So that's what I do. Every book, I buy myself a gift. Or you could donate it to your cause, or give a big sum to whatever is your heartfelt cause. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a gift material thing. It could be a scholarship. It could be a donation to a women's shelter or to the animals in shelter. Anything that you firmly believe in, say, this is what I want. And you can tell people, too, for my birthday, I would like you to donate to this literacy center, whatever you want. It's your birthday.
But you know, you and I have also talked a lot about how we've done a lot of inner work, that we go to therapy, that, you know, that if we could unpack a lot of the stuff that's happened to all of us as immigrants or kids of immigrants, and that so many of us don't do it because we have all these, you know, limiting beliefs. Can you talk to the ladies about that?
Well, you know, I think if we've grown up in a society where that was matriarchal, and we do have that in our lineage, you know, our great-grandmothers or great-great-grandmothers knew a lot about our intuitive powers and about herbs and about things that would strengthen us, and we lost all that through immigration and through sometimes our education is a miseducation because it dismisses and calls our intuitive gifts superstitions or old wives' tales. That's a belittling of women's powers. And now at 67, like I had to find a teacher to teach me about how to interpret some of the gifts I have. Like I have intuitive gifts in dreams, sleeping and awake. And sometimes I wake up and I'll say, Marco Ramirez. And my partner will say, well, who's that? I don't know. And then later on, Marco Ramirez will call that day. You know, so you know we have those gifts, and we don't know how to nurture or pay attention to them. And now that I'm older, I'm learning how And I think that's why I was called to be in Mexico, because Mexico, you know, when you tell people that a spirit visited you or you saw a ghost, they don't think you're crazy.
They don't freak out like you're
No,
crazy.
no, they'll say, you know, I saw one too. You know, and you know, there's certain cultures, like when I was in China, I would tell them, you know, I have a ghost in my backyard. Because they know, they don't believe, they know they're a ghost. And that's why, because they're cultures that have a very deep spiritual intuition and deep spiritual knowledge. You know, and I think those are countries that are the first world of spiritual powers. And we live in first world of money, but Mexico is the first world of spiritual powers. Guatemala, all of Latin America, the Southwest, and the indigenous cultures. So I think I was called back there by spirits, because I woke up and a voice said, "You are not your house." And I was like, "What? Who said that?" And it came at a time when I needed to unshackle myself from raising money for my foundations and my house, because I had wanted to leave it to the city of San Antonio as a writer's residency. And I realized I'm not my house. I need to get out of here. And I remember I came back to San Antonio, and it was like that moment in Forrest Gump when he stops running and all those people are following him, and he says, I think I need to go home now. To me, it was like I needed to go home. And all of my volunteers from Macondo were like, "What? What? You can't, what? You're going to Mexico? No, you can't go to Mexico." Well, yeah, I'm going to go to Mexico. A whole bunch of expats, gringuitos do it. Why not me, right? My ancestors lived 100 kilometers from that town. Why can't I do it? They do it, right? So, you know, I have to say Mexico's not perfect. It's getting very violent, like the United States. You know, and
Nothing is more violent than us here.
I know, it's getting scary. And, you know, there's been a lot of violence in my town lately. But how is that any different from Humboldt Park in Chicago, where I grew up, you know? There are less rats, that's for sure. And, you know, so I find, like, you know, yeah, it's a difficult country. It has its flaws, but it has beautiful things, like the women's and their knowledge and the knowledge of the spirits and the respect for the spirit world and for our intuitive gifts. I love that about Mexico, and I love that the people connect, at least in the town I live in. They look you in the eye, they say buenos dias. They know how to have manners. You know, and the people who don't have manners are people without an education. It could be the humblest person, and yet they have manners. And here, you know, when I see the tourists come, they talk so loud. I had to, you know, say, "Excuse me, you know, you remember where you are? We're from here." Some teenagers said at the Starbucks, and I said, "Well, act like it." And they were like, But, you know, they made me ashamed to come from the U.S. because they behave so badly. They behave like people without education. And I think that, you know, that's the thing, that the most humblest, poorest person in Mexico, it knows their manners. And that's something that Mexico supersedes in the United States. I do like that. I love that the sky is so beautiful in Mexico. And I like living in a town where a car is not important. And I really like that I can walk places. And I like the indigenous presence of the people, and I like the aguanto del pueblo. You know, they've gone through a pandemic without a government bailout. But what do? They knock on your door, they'll sweep your driveway, they make empanadas, you know, whatever they do, le echan ganas. And that's
It's a different culture. It is such a different
le
culture.
echan ganas, y el poder de aguantar tanto for siglos is there, and the people, and that makes me proud. You know, right now there's a group in Guanajuato, the capital, which is just like, you know, an hour and a half away, called Las Libres. I don't know if you saw the article in the New York Times about Las Libres. It's a group of women who work for reproductive rights for Mexican women. And right now, with everything that's happening in the United States, where women's reproductive rights are getting taken away, they're working on transporting day-after pills and to the border and getting it across to women who need it in the United States. Isn't that amazing? I'm so proud.
Sandra,
age where, you're, as we said, we're the elders, we're the wise women, right? And so many women don't get to hear, like, what you wish you knew then that you know now. What would you say to these ladies about the phases of life and what you wish you knew as Latinas?
Well, I can tell you, but you won't listen, but I'll tell you anyway.
We don't listen to our moms, but...
No, you won't listen, because until you make your own mistakes, that's how you learn. You have to go to the school of trancazos. I'm sorry. You're just going to waste a lot of time chasing after love when love's all around you.
Prince Charming.
Love is all around you. It may not come in the form that you expected. Like my friend, she was lighting all kinds of velitas and putting San Antonio al revés. She wanted love. And then recently, she sent me a picture of her love, and I said, "Ay, ¿te acuerdas that you were asking for love? And you got it. But he's a baby. He's your grandchild." So sometimes it comes as a baby, or it comes maybe as a little chamaquito with 4 feet and a tail, You don't know how love's going to come. Or might come as a pirul tree or gardenia. You never know how love, the universe is filled with love. It's giving you love all the time. And maybe we're just looking for it in a person. And there's love all around you. It's all around. And once you connect to yourself and love yourself and have a practice of meditating, you're going to see, wow, I'm loved all the time. But I was looking for it in a bar. And I'm sorry, but that's not a good place to live.
How many of you in the audience are writers? So maybe we need to ask you a little bit about how you write and what is your writing discipline like?
Right now the writing and the mystic discipline is the same. Meditating in the morning, even if it's just 5 minutes, and meditating before I go to sleep. And to me, the spiritual path is the writer's path for me. So I want to learn from the best, the people without an ego, and I read Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk, and I read Pema Chodron, or I listen to them. I read poetry so that I can become a better human being. Joy Harjo's a favorite, and all the people on the back of my book that blurred me are favorite writers. I'm always looking to become a better human being, because that's part of becoming a good writer. It's not enough for me to be a good writer. When I went to graduate school, all they taught you was the writing, but no one talked about the development of transforming yourself into a good human being. So by the time you leave this planet, you will say, wow, I lived a life. I don't want to have regrets. And I want to be able to leave this life knowing that I've been of service. And I think the highest writing we can do is of service for others. This is what my life has taught me. Whatever you make, on behalf of those you love, with no personal agenda, with no ego, what you make, lo que se hace con puro amor y amor puro por your seres queridos, sin ninguna agenda personal, siempre sale bonito. Whatever you make with love and pure love and no personal agenda on behalf of those you love is always going to turn out well. That's a law of the universe that I can guarantee. I learned it with House on Mango Street. And it doesn't matter what your job is. Mothers know this. They do so much without expectations. And, it's always going to turn out well as long as you don't have an ego agenda there.
Okay, are we ready to ask questions? Yes, can you come up? Here. Or should I say, yeah, thank you. Oh, wait, we'll send it back to you.
Not this one? You can send.
Yeah, switch. That one works. This one works? No, she has to answer.
That's all right.
Is this okay if we do this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you look at it for a while?
Is it working?
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah. Wasn't prepared to come up, but mil gracias.
Thank you.
Just love your writing.
Thank you.
Big fan for a lot of years. How do you approach rewriting with love?
You have to be very loving and patient with yourself. Because rewriting is the hard part. The creating is, kind of easy, and then you realize, oh my God, 80% of this is the revising. Yeah, you have to be very patient. And as these poems took 28 years, a lot of them I just put down. But I think it's important to have a community of writers, so it won't take 28 years. Someone you trust, who can be your coach, who can edit you, because you're only as good as your editor. And if you're working by yourself, you can despair. Writing's a marathon, and it's hard unless you have your team giving you some water, leading you forward, saying, come on, you can do it. I'll push you to the finish line. So you need to have your chosen family that are other writers. Do you have that?
Yeah, I do. The very famous Maria Elena Fernandez, and Trini was in my writing group for one time. So
Yeah,
I do, but I just took some time off and now I'm going back. But thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Who else has a question? Yes, right here.
Come on over.
Good evening. First of all, just thank you so much for opening up so much of who you are and sharing it with all of us.
Thank you.
I'm a retired high school English teacher, and it's not about me, but I have used your writings so much. I got so much mileage and so many lessons that from using your work. And one of my favorite poems is the love poem where you mentioned Dolores Del Rio, and that's as far as I'll go with that. But one of my favorite story of yours is Salvador Later Early, which there were times when I couldn't get through it without it bringing tears to my eyes. But the question I have is...
What a good guy, huh?
That's why my students love me. The question I have is more a technical one. Why did you choose to write that story in the fashion that you wrote it?
That's a good question. And, Salvador Later Early is a very small vignette in Woman Hollering Creek. And I was standing in like the foyer of a house I was renting in Berkeley, and I had an envelope, and I was writing a memory of someone who was a classmate of mine and whose memory I couldn't forget. Just that moment I was going to go in the kitchen and I remembered Salvador, and I loved the expression tarde o temprano from the Spanish, so I was taking that, Salvador Later Early, tarde o temprano, sooner or later, it really translates, but I translated it literally. And I liked how fresh it sounded in English that way. But I just wrote it, and it all came out in one like string, very easily. And I didn't know if it was going to be a poem, because I was writing on an envelope, so it was that wide. And I just kept following it, and I said, well, where is this going? And as always, I don't decide what it wants to be. I just follow it. And I knew when I finished it, it was more like a prose narrative, a prose-like poem. But I write narrative that sounds like poetry and poetry that sounds like narrative. I just let it decide what it wants to be. And I realized after I finished writing it that I was Salvador. When you're a little kid and you see someone who comes to class with their shirt all wrinkled and dirty, and you imagine the house they live in and why he left like that, and he didn't have time to clean himself because he had to take care of the little brothers. And I realized, one child recognizing themselves in another child. And I knew every time he spoke, he was as ashamed and afraid and intimidated as I was. And I had a uniform that my mother had ironed. I only had one skirt and maybe 2 blouses, and I went to Catholic school. I couldn't afford. And my mom one day was distracted and she burned my uniform. So she took like a patch from this extra fabric. It was like from the tirantes, and she made a little patch. No one could see that patch, but I felt everyone was looking at my patch, So I felt like Salvador, that there was something about me that made me act like I was ashamed all the time. And because I knew the kind of house that he lived in, my aunt had that house. I didn't live in sub-poverty, but I visited those houses, my relations. I knew where he came from. And all of it came to the fore in that little envelope. And I just kept writing, and then I typed it up, and it became that story. And thank you, because that's one of my favorite ones too.
And it was because of the way you wrote it, it made it so relatable to my freshman classes. And when you talk about at the end how he gets lost.
Yeah, he just one of so many little
Yes.
boys that go out there and disappears like a little kite. You know, that's how he
I
described
mean,
it.
I'd ask my students what was their favorite line, and for a lot of them it was the broken crayons.
Oh, well, you know, there's a autobiographical note there. My mother put me in school in February when I was supposed to go to school in September. And my mother forced me to go to school to first grade, early, because there was no kindergarten. And my birthday's in December, and children who have birthdays in the middle of the school year, those of you who are educators know, those children have difficulty just holding a pencil. And they also are not emotionally ready for school. But my mother had 4 little ones at home, 3 in diapers. So she wanted to get rid of me. And she went, I remember going to the principal's office with her, and she said, I want to put her in kindergarten. And the principal said, there is no kindergarten. Put her in first grade. But she didn't realize that it was very emotionally upsetting for me. And so in order for me to get to school late, the teacher told us we couldn't have crayons in crayon boxes. We had to put it in a shoe box. So I had my little brother's baby shoe boxes, those little white booties, and I had the box with my crayons, and I would purposely drop it in the street when the crossing guard was crossing us, so it would take us a long time to pick it all up. And then when we got to school, the door was locked, and then we could go home. My brother, who was a grade above me in second grade, said, I'm not taking her anymore. She makes me late. So my father said, I will take her. It's a pleasure to take your sister. I will take her. So my father took me. I was his favorite, and I would be hanging on to him saying, no, papá, por favor, no quiero ir, por favor. No, no, papá, no me veas, no me veas. And my father would say, ay, caray, and bring me back home. And my mother would say, she has to go to school. And my father, pero no quiere. ¿A tienes que llevar? And my father would take me, and I would be, and it was traumatic for me. I'd never been alone without one of the brothers. So my father would be either in the window, or I imagine him in the window with the same face as mine looking at me. It must have been very hard for him. It was traumatic. And I remember the first thing they asked me to do was to write my name. I never held a pencil. And I cried and cried, and I started here, and I went, Sandra. I don't know how I got to the bottom, Cisneros, and went in the diagonal, because I got those pages later at the end of the year. And do you know, that was my first writing assignment, write your name, and it made me cry. And now, when I write, I still feel like crying. It's difficult writing. It gets more and more difficult each book. Thank you for asking, and thank you for the work you do. They should have statues to you. And just so you know, I said this earlier in an interview, the sexiest thing a man can do for me is read a book.
Hola, buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Soy Verónica y soy de León, Guanajuato.
Vecino con nosotros.
Sí, yo conozco San Miguel de Allende, es un lugar muy bonito,
Sí.
muy inspirador, colonial. Más que una pregunta es un agradecimiento. Sabes, yo tengo algo bien curioso de la forma que te conocí, Sandra. Gracias a... Tengo 4 hijos, tengo 2 hijas que fueron a la universidad y se recibieron, pero yo no tuve esa oportunidad cuando llegué aquí a este país. Y yo juré que mis hijas lo iban a lograr. Y sin vergüenza y sin nada, sin inglés y sin nada, siempre estuve en los parent centers, informándome cómo mis hijas, qué necesitan para llegar a la universidad.
Wow.
Entonces, porque a mí me cortaron las alas el machismo. Y yo pensé que yo no era una machista, mamá. Y mis hijas me dijeron, you are machista. Tú estás creando machos. Y yo dije, ¿por qué me dices eso? Porque me dices, sírvele a tu hermano. Y él tiene manos, tiene pies. Y yo dije, ¿qué están leyendo estas? Y miré un libro tuyo.
¿Cuál fue?
Yo no me acuerdo el nombre, pero hay muchos libros de usted en mi casa. Y me dijeron, mamá, esta señora no es una feminista, esta señora es una persona que mira la dignidad del ser humano.
Wow.
¿Ok? Y yo tuve que aprendí a dejar el machismo, a no crear machistas, y ahora mis hijos tienen que lavar trastes. Muchas gracias, porque ellas aprendieron, yo aprendí, y ellas están dando a la sociedad. Una trabaja trabajadora social y la otra trabaja para organizadora de Pacoima Beautiful.
¡Te felicito!
Gracias por estar en nuestras vidas.
Y quiero decirte que mi madre también le cortaron las alas y no pudo acabar su educación, pero con esas ganas de estudiar nos dio a nosotros permiso. Así que gracias a
Yo me realizo también. Así es, gracias.
Gracias. Wow. Beautiful story.
Hola, señorita Cisneros.
Well, you can call me Sandra.
Señorita Sandra.
I'm not a señorita. Neither señorita ni señora.
So, just like the gentleman that went up before me, I too am an English teacher. This is my
Bravo,
first year.
bravo.
We have a Latinx club at our school. Our scholars are sitting in the back row, so they'd be, if you were...
Stand up, make us proud.
Come on, scholars. If you wanted to take a photo with them, I know they'd be
I
obliged.
will. I'll put on my mask and do it afterwards, but if we
Thank
could do
you.
it outside, much better.
Thank you. So we have a young writer in the group, and I'm so excited that she's writing so young, because when you write, it serves as a diary. And with your writing, I wanted to ask if there's a piece that you're the proudest to have separated yourself from, in terms of state of mind or experience.
I think that last poem is hard for me to read out loud, and I didn't write it to embarrass anyone, and certainly not to embarrass me. But it's only now that I read it only a few times, and I'm learning how to read it, and it started out funny, but it doesn't end up funny, because it takes me on a ride too, and it's not a flattering poem to me. There are funny moments in it, but there are things I learned about myself that were a little shocking, that I had made up a lot of the relationships that I was looking for my father's approval in some of them. So, I learned a lot, and that's why you write poetry, because it takes you to places you didn't know. And I think that's my strongest poem in the book, because it took a lot of shamelessness to write it. And, I'm not ashamed of all the lovers I had. I wish I could have more. Anyone interested? I don't feel like I have to. I feel very happy, single. And I feel the most powerful I've ever been in my life, the most satisfied living my life. And I want women to have muchos amores de muchos colores and to satisfy themselves. And if they don't have that, go to Good Vibrations. The more sexually fulfilled you are, the más chingona you feel. You really feel so good. Because we have desire. We make people in our society ashamed to have desire and sexuality. And those are things we have to deshacer ourselves from our cultura and our state, especially the time we're living in, that's so afraid of anything sexual. The cover of my book, which if you'll notice, by Flor Garduño, this is a detail of a full nude. And I wanted the full nude for the cover, and my publisher said, oh, no, we can't have that. The book distributors and the booksellers won't like that. I said, well, that's what the whole book is about, about women coming into their power and loving their bodies and loving themselves. So we had to arrive at some compromise. And I just hope that women will be inspired by this book to explore their own sexuality, to write about things that they feel ashamed about. That's why I write about these things. I don't want to be ashamed. I want to take away the vergüenza that I learned from my family and from the church and from our times that we're living in. It's not just, heterosexuality. It's all kinds of sexualities that the United States makes you ashamed and afraid of. And so I really I hope this book will inspire people to write poetry and do your own exploration of parts of yourself that are taboo for you to think or talk about, even to yourself. I love the book, Things That I Do in the Dark, by June Jordan. That title is, to me, says everything of what poetry is about, going to those dark places in our psyche and, coming up and being illuminated and transformed so that we're empowered and not debilitated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. During COVID, my son was doing the Zoom. He was in 6th grade, and he read this story about this old ugly sweater, and it was ragged, and and it was scratchy, and I was reading, I'm like, this is such a great sweater, and the little girl felt, not just 11, but 10 and 9 and 8, and it was your story. And I was like, what a great story, because even however old you are, you always feel, the ages that you were before, because it's always like, well, no, I'm this age, and I should be an adult now and face this fear, and I'll be okay, but sometimes those insecurities are still there, so I really appreciated that.
I love that story, 11.
Yes.
Based on something that happened to me when I was 9.
Oh my
But I
gosh.
couldn't write about it till I was 30.
See?
So, I was ashamed to talk about it. And so I think that was the beginning of one of my trying to lose my shame about things that happened to me as a child.
And so I guess my question is that how do you, I'm experiencing a little bit of writer's block and self-doubt right now. And I just want to know if you have any coping skills and strategies
Yes.
to get over that.
Yes, make a list of everything that you're afraid to talk about and go there. And imagine, and I give you permission to not share it. You don't have to publish it, but you do have to write these things. So go there. The things that, when we have writer's block, it's not that we ran out of things, it's we're afraid to write about the things that we are holding in. It's writer's fear. So make a list of what's taboo for you to talk about and write from that place. Write 10 things that you wish you could forget and write from there. And imagine no one's going to see it, and if you must, you can tear it up afterwards. You might release some demons that you can't put back in the bottle. And if that happens, that's what a therapist is for, to help you to... No, seriously, we need therapists. They will help us. I have written, when I wrote Caramelo, I thought I would get all my demons out, and I felt more vulnerable when I finished it. I had to find a really good Jungian therapist to help me to feel less vulnerable. Because sometimes when we let these demons out, they are like snakes that shed a skin, and you'll feel very frightened and tender and a little mad. So do write from that place, but be wary that you might need to see a therapist afterwards.
Oh, I have a therapist, it's okay.
But good for you. See it.
I'm a school psychologist, I have to be a therapist.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Good. You need to not be ashamed to seek therapy. So good for you.
Buenas tardes. First of all, I'm so glad you're not in Juntada yet, and I made it to the front of the line. And my name is Marilena Fernandez. I teach Chicana Studies at Cal State Northridge. I know there's people. And it's great to see you again. Many years ago, we had you on our campus. I wanted to share that, one of my journeys has been to come to acceptance that, that I did not marry and have children. And I'm single, and I'm 57, and so that's my reality. And it's been a long journey for me to come to that acceptance, and and to realize how much I internalized. I had a lot of shame about that, sorrow, because I wanted that. I wanted, and it's still, a veces, my friends.
But sometimes you mother your students, no?
Yes. But, sometimes, a veces still, look, your friends son is graduating from high school or college. Anyway, the point is that I have come to, it's a lot of it is, of course, internalized sexism, internalized ageism, all of that. That's really the source of the shame. And I've just decided that I'm just going to be, stand up for us, single childless women, and that are for our dignity and our power and our value. And I'm making a list of all those women I know, and you're absolutely on it. And I just want to acknowledge us, and what we're battling, and that we are as valuable as all other women. And I see, I see myself in the younger women in their mid and late 30s, hoping to get married and have children and like that, and older, and that whole thing. And I just want us to be, proud of ourselves. It's surviving in this patriarchal society. And I'm just wondering if that's a journey that you were on, have been on, and do you have words of wisdom?
Yeah, when I was 30, and I was the nanny for my niece, and she was 1 month old, and I took care of her for 3 months. And she was only 1 month old, so she was 2, 3, 4 months old baby for 12 hours a day, except on the weekend. And I saw how much work that was.
Yes.
And I said, the only way I'm going to be able to have a baby is I'm going to have to move back to Chicago and live under my father's roof. And so I decided then. But I did regret later in my life, when I would fall in love with somebody, I would want to have their child, and especially the ones that weren't going to stick around. And I would think, this man's not going to be in my life, but perhaps I can have his child. Later I thought, a baby's not a souvenir. A baby is forever, and what a stupid idea I had, and thank God that I didn't have that person's child. And so there were moments when I thought, maybe I should have had a child. But now I have no regrets. There's wobbling times in my life, and I have mothered so many students. I continue to mother students. I've mothered over 13 books, and I don't really like kids for more than an hour.
That would be a problem, yeah.
No, I took care of the baby for 12 hours, but I didn't do any writing, until the parents were around. And kids are work. Mm-hmm. You really gotta like it, and it's not for me. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
My mother didn't like dogs. I like dogs, so you mother other things. I rescue animals and foster them. My mother would get angry at me and say, when they put a baby in your arms, you don't know what to do. But if I see a dog, it's like, oh. So I guess it's okay. We don't all have to be mothers. My brothers have children, and I like being the tia. That's good.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate your perspective. I think this is a silence that needs to be broken.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Not everybody needs to be a mom. Are you all okay standing back there? Everybody okay? Because we can wrap it up. Are you okay? Just a few more, okay? Because I don't want us to be like the Late Show. Okay, we'll wrap it up in a little bit para los pobres infelices out there, the poor unhappy ones out there. Okay.
Buenas noches, me llamo Catherine, yo soy maestra de español aquí en César Chávez, como a 10 minutos de acá. En mi clase leemos acá en Mango Street. No leemos todo el libro, leemos unos cuantos historias, y los estudiantes agarran tus historias como inspiración y luego escriben su propia historia. Y quisiera leerte una de mis historias favoritas de una de mis estudiantes, inspirada por la historia de los que no, si me permites.
Is it brief? Because look at those pobrecitos.
Es rapidito. Dice, la ciudad de Pacoima es donde yo crecí a ser el chamaco que soy hoy. Pacoima me ha enseñado lo bueno y lo malo. Va a haber gente buena que te va a ayudar, y va a haber gente que te da la cara de fuchi. Vas a ver amigos que sí son amigos, vas a ver algunas partes que no puedes ir sin salir golpeado. Es cierto que Pacoima es un área que a veces se ve mal, Pero yo me siento a gusto en Pacoima porque yo estoy con gente que tiene el mismo color de piel y habla el mismo idioma. Aprendí muchas cosas viviendo en Pacoima. Aprendí a qué decir en las calles, yo aprendí cómo vestir de una manera, aprendí cómo respetar a la gente y finalmente aprendí cómo ser la persona que soy hoy. En conclusión, si Pacoima fuera una persona, le daría un abrazo y nunca le dejaría ir. Y para que conozcan el área de acá, ¿verdad? Donde tía Chucha representa esta área también, y gracias por la inspiración.
Gracias. Yeah, maybe one more.
Yeah. Can I read the last one? No, pasa usted.
It's an honor to see you and to speak to you. So I'm sure you've seen the t-shirt. Moraga, Anzaldúa, Cisneros, Castillo, and I guess the question is, you are part of what we consider, the foremothers of so much of our way of thinking as Chicana feminists. And so my question is, you are part of that core. And so one is thank you, but also how do you feel to be included, and what is your relationship, either personally or literary, with these other foremothers?
Well, I would see Gloria when she would come to town, but I didn't want to see her with the Last Supper. So I always wound up sitting where Judas would sit, and she was in the middle with everybody else. And I said, Gloria, if you want to see me, you have to see me one-on-one. And she did, and so I got to visit with her alone, not with everybody. And I'm very opposed to the glorification of Gloria Anzaldúa, because where was everybody when she was alive? We should have been helping her when she was alive, not like, when she's dead. So it irritates me that there wasn't that apoyo for her when she was alive. So there's that. Cherie, I haven't seen Cherie in a long time. And I was looking forward to yesterday sharing the stage with her, because I feel like I've been trotting behind her for decades, saying, Cherie, and she's I gotta go. And finally I thought, oh great, we're gonna have that conversation, and she's gonna be there, but se enfermó, but we're gonna get together and have a conversation deferred, and I was really looking forward because she and I go way back. I brought her to San Antonio, Texas back in 1984 when people in Texas didn't know who she was, and I put myself at risk in bringing her. But I wanted to talk about that, so one day we will have that conversation. Ana Castillo and I come from the same town. I didn't know her when we lived a few blocks away from each other. I met her when I finished my graduate studies in 1978. And we were a little bit like that, and sometimes she gets mad at me, but I'm her fan, and I like her work, but she got mad at me because I said, Ana, why did you write Paloma Negra with an introduction for the white reader when we're the ones that read you? You say, encabronó. But I like that book, and I like her, and I hope that enough time has passed that she'll forgive me. And I hope we will be on the stage together one day with Erika. It's my dream to have Ana Castillo and Erika Sanchez on the stage at the Mexican Museum so we can have a really good Chicago Plática. Ojalá.
Thank you so much.
So let's give a big hand to Sandra Cisneros.
Poetry, I try to write in a way that people feel welcomed and not feel intimidated, and I hope you will write poetry and read more poetry, because this is a time when we need poetry the most. Okay, so please write 2 poems, call me in the morning.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you, everyone. Please, another round of applause. Tía Chuchas, it's been been my honor to have you all here tonight. It's been beautiful to look out into the crowd and see our community presente. Thank you to Sandra, thank you to Nely for your presence here tonight, and just for all the stories and all the memories everybody shared. I would like to let you all know and invite you that the pickup line for the books is right over here to my right. And the autographed books will be at the register with Nani. Nani, could you raise your hand? Line's here? Okay. Yeah. And the registers are at the counter. We are out of English copies of the book. Okay, just letting you know we are out of English copies of the book. And you do need your ID and your order number ready to pick up your book. And one book per person currently. Thank you.
Formar la gente, you know what I mean? No, but they're not around.
Estás escandalizado. We were looking at each other.
They're like, oh,
What the hell is a prize? Look at that, hay una cola.